Okay, so I'm going to be doing a short series of videos as I set up this tank. This is an 8-foot by 3.5-foot tall tank that I've got in my office. Should look significantly better than just all of the crap that's around anyways. This is going to be for a Chinese water dragon, and what I'm going to be doing here is this lighter side I'm going to be doing as an aquarium because they enjoy swimming a great deal. I'm going to be going through ways to keep water clean. I'm going to be going through the science of nitrogen and the nitrates and ammonia buildup and things like that go through. And on this side I'm going to be doing a terrarium section. There's going to be cross over here where the lizard can go into the water, swim around. I'm going to have some fish and things. Over here, we're going to be doing a lot of live plants. I've got the plants set up here. I'm going to be going through the kinds of plants that I'm using, the kinds of soil setup and things like that, what you want to watch out for, and the ways to keep things healthy. And then at the end, we'll see how it's doing when everything is all set up and done. So the first thing that we need, we're going to be doing the land side first, is we need a good substrate. And coconut has no nutritional value at all. It holds onto water pretty well, but that's the only thing that it does. So what I'm doing for these is Miracle Choice Organic, or Miracle Grow Organic Choice Potting Mix. There's nothing particularly special about this except for the fact that if you look at the ingredients, there is no perlite and there is no vermiculite, and that's what you have to watch out for, because perlite and vermiculite are two things that the lizard can ingest, and it can end up with intestinal compaction where it can't poop it out, and it ends up with all sorts of problems. And you can see here, this is fairly fine stuff. There's a fair amount of wood in it. You know, you want to go through and pull any big chunks of wood out. I was lucky with my first bag. The second bag, there's a little bit more. Anything that you think that your lizard might eat, you want to get rid of. Now, this stuff doesn't have anything in it for maintaining moisture. It doesn't have anything for moisture management at all. I believe it says that on the bag someplace. Yeah, I think it's down here in this little corner that's all folded over. So that means you're going to have to water it a whole lot. So what I've done is I've done a mix here in this bucket. You can see there's a pretty big thing here. I've done a mix of 2 bricks of coconut, and I've done a bag and a half of the Organic Choice, and then I've done a bag of just this cheap Quikrete play sand. It's about $3, I think, at Lowe's or Home Depot. Works pretty well, and you get something that looks about like this. None of the pieces are really big enough to worry about the lizard ingesting them. The sand will help with excess water drainage, so you're not going to end up with it horribly waterlogged. And the coconut will help with actually maintaining the moisture content, so you don't have to worry about the soil drying out immediately, while still keeping enough actual nutrients to keep the plants healthy and alive. So I'm going to mix that up, make sure that everything's filled in really well, then we will start with planting. The other thing that you want to consider when you're working on these kinds of things is a water table. You want the excess water to be able to drain someplace. So when you pour water in, it goes through, it's going to hit your soil here, and it's going to go through the soil, and it's got to have someplace else to go. Otherwise your soil is going to end up just foggy if you end up with too much liquid in there. So one of the cheapest solutions for this, there's a lot of things that you can buy. You can go down to the pet store, you can buy hydro balls. If you're not familiar with those, they are little round clay pellets. And these are incredibly lightweight. They're baked clay, and that drives the moisture out of it. It usually leaves a fair amount of mineral deposit behind, so you still end up with, you know, your iron and magnesium and things like that in the content. And these are designed to go underneath your substrate down here. So you can get a water table. The roots are supposed to grow through your substrate into these where they can pick up nutrients from the water. If you get this circulating well, you can use these as a biological filter, and I'll go into biological filters later. But that's one of the options, and these are not terribly expensive. They're about $1 a pound, usually. It's not the best stuff out there. There's a lot of other stuff that's made. There's stuff that's specifically for, aquarium use. Lots of things made by ADA and companies like that that are enriched clay materials. What I'm using is this stuff here. It's called Safety Zorb, and it's something that I picked up at Tractor Supply. This 50-pound bag or 40-pound, 40-pound bag, runs anywhere from $3 to about $7. It just depends on where in the country you live. And this stuff is just made out of, you can see here, Montmorillonite clay and crystalline silica. And sometimes it'll say that, sometimes it'll say that it's Fuller's Earth. You want to watch out for a couple things here. The main one you want to look out for is that you're not getting dimetonic earth. Some of these absorbing things are made out of that instead. There are a couple other things you can use here. Special kitty litter from Walmart is pretty cheap. It's not baked quite as hot as this is, so it has a tendency to fall apart a little bit easier. So you end up with kind of a 40% clay chunk, 60% silt mix out of that. This stuff holds together pretty well. It does have a fairly high silica content, and that doesn't really matter because the bacteria that will grow in this are good for the plants. Using it in the aquarium, it's good. The silica will actually allow diatom production, which is one of the primary forms of photosynthetic algae. And they will end up using that up in the aquarium in probably less than a week. This stuff works pretty well. It's very cheap. It's a whole lot cheaper than buying something like hydroballs. Again, this bag, this 40-pound quantity of hydroballs would have run me about $50, and this bag cost me $6. So it's a very good product to use for this kind of thing. Okay, so I've started the process on the dry side. You can see I've got about an inch of this Safety Zorb here, and I'm just overlaying it with a very thin layer of my mixture for substrate here. You don't want to be putting the roots directly on the Safety Zorb because it does absorb a fair amount of water, and you don't really want that happening immediately to your roots out the bat. So I will continue doing this, and then we will work on planting them after this. So cleaning out the plants, there's a couple things you have to watch for. The first one is any debris or anything like that that's in it. Hopefully you can see this little white pellet there. That's a fertilizer pellet. You want to get those out because you don't want the lizards eating them. You also want to get out any of the little spongy bits that show up in these. A lot of times that's vermiculite. Perlite and vermiculite are both things that you really want to watch out for. They're added as water stabilizers in a lot of things. So you want to make sure that you get these sort of clean. You don't have to get every little bit of stuff out. As long as you get any of the little silver or white dots or any of the squishy stuff out, you should be okay. So you can see here, this is pretty well cleaned out. The important thing is that you get out the bulk of the soil and you get out anything that's lumpy, anything that's silvery or white or kind of foamy. Everything that's in here now is because I just set it down in here. So you don't have to have it perfect. Trying to get it perfect, you're going to end up damaging the roots. This is a Bromeliad, Bromeliad. And when you order these, when you buy these, I just picked it up at Lowe's. They come with these little cards, tells you the care. This one is 1 to 2 hours of indirect light per day. And we've got a lot of light here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be moving this one into this corner over here when I put it in, so that the direct light from the window won't hit it. It'll never have anything going directly on it. It's just going to be reflected light off of other things. It is pretty easy. Take your roots, spread them out as much as you can so that you can get kind of a flat area here. I'm not going to push it super far into the corner because I want the lizard to be able to get around it. So you have, flat spread roots here. And just get your soil up on top of it. You want it to be deep enough that your plant is going to have some support, around the stem. You don't want to pack it super tightly or you'll end up breaking the root systems a little. So you want to make sure that it can stand up on its own when you're done. Getting a little bit higher around the stem is okay. I'm probably going to do this one up to about here, which is about another 1/2 inch, just to make sure that it's nice and stable and it's not going to take any damage from the lizard walking around and bumping into it. Okay, next up we've got a money tree. And these are kind of pretty little 5-leafed things. These you want to be careful when you're washing. The roots are very easy to break on this one, so I'm not really going to be cleaning most of this out. I'm just going to be heaping it into a pile of stuff in the corner, and I'm going to be getting the dirt probably up to about here, so that's going to be, a good 4 inches of soil on this. I'm going to spread these out as well as I can, but you're limited in this one. The last one that I did, most of the roots ended up breaking off, so I'm going to try to be a little bit more careful with this one. This one actually has lived pretty well considering all the roots are gone. It's a little bit sunburned from the last cage. I'm probably going to try to get this one in here also, but this one's a little nicer. These are nice. They turn into big gnarly things. This is not one that I've ever seen on any of the herpetology forums saying that it's safe, but the ASPCA says that it's safe for pretty much anything to eat. And if it's safe for cats to eat and horses to eat and dogs to eat and all those things, then I don't think contact is going to do anything to the lizard. I'm going to go out on a limb, so to speak, and assume that it's probably safe. Okay, so you can see my money tree and my Bromeliad here. Pretty happy in the dirt. I've also gone ahead and planted in a parlor palm. These come in groups of 3. They are very hardy. This one is a little bit wilty, but it's a little bit wilty because I've had it sitting in this bucket in the dark for the last month. So that considered, this plant has done very well. I've got one in the current tank, and the lizard likes to climb up onto it and sleep on it as a perch, and it's held up pretty well to that, to the really beaming heat lamps that are only 10 inches above it. Very, very hardy plants. When you can find them, they're quite pretty. They're like $3 for a bunch of 3 of them. It's a great addition for a tank, and you really don't have to worry about killing them. They're incredibly hardy little things. So next I've got an Vivarium. These are supposed to be safe. They're quite a lot bigger than things like crotons and things like that. I just want to show this for a second to really highlight what I was talking about when I say you have to remove things. This is just regular styrofoam that's put in here as a filler. There are also these little silver beads over here. These are some kind of time-release fertilizer, I believe. You want to get rid of all of those things because if you've got a lizard and it decides to eat one of these things because it wiggles around in the air current thinking it's a bug, it's not going to come out well. It's just going to get stuck in its intestines, and that leads to bad things happening. So while you don't have to get rid of all of the dirt, you want to do everything you can to reasonably to get rid of any of these things. Sometimes they are grown into the plants a little bit, and those are less of an issue, but get rid of what you can. If there's something you can't get rid of, make sure you bury it pretty well with your existing soil. Okay, so next we've got a variety of things. When you look at the things in the stores, it's worth noting that lots of plants will look different. So this one here is, I believe, a Janet Craig compacta. I won't focus on that because of the reflection. The important thing is it's a Dracana. And this one here, I believe, is Florida Beauty. It is also a Dracana. These are all 3 the same plant. Dracaenas are, as far as I know, always safe. This lucky bamboo is also a Dracaena. So you can get a wide variety in this kind of plant. The other thing that I've got in here is these, which are Croton Firebush. And these are high light, high indirect light. These are medium. So I'm going to put my Firebush, which comes in a couple of sizes here. These are going to go up against my glass. These ones are going to go a little bit farther back. And then the ones that are low light, like these, and all of these are going to be further into the background so that they won't be too unhappy. They're all going to be getting a lot of light from my UV bulb. But it is a ways away, so I'm not expecting a whole lot of sunburns and damage from that. So here's the tank fully planted. It is about 2 weeks after I set this up. You can see things are doing pretty well. I've gone ahead and added some branches in here for her. There's a large log running through the middle. Things that have happened: my smaller Croton is slowly dying. It's not because of water, it's probably because of root compaction. It's falling apart here. The other one is doing very well. My parlor palms are still doing fairly well. This one is a little bit wilty, but again, I was expecting one of these to die because it was in a bucket by itself for a month. The rest of the plants are all doing very well. One of the Dracaena, you can see the stem there, went pretty early on, but I think the lizard started pulling the leaves off for some reason because they were still very green and very healthy. They would just be on the floor. So maybe she started climbing them, but you can see the Bromeliad and the money tree back there are also doing very well. There's a little bit of spotting on the leaves of the lucky bamboo, but things are doing very well with this setup. With, you know, just the one UV light. I've got a couple of heat lamps here trying to keep this in mid 80s. Overall, things are surviving very well. You can always expect, you know, one or two plants to die. In this case, it was the smaller ones, and that's to be expected. They're a little bit less hardy because they've got less going on. So, you know, the larger parlor palm is doing okay. The smaller one is dying. But it gives a little bit of extra room for her to move around when they die. I've got another water dish sitting in here because it took her several days before she decided that going into the aquarium was okay. But I'll probably be pulling that out tomorrow because she has not had any issues with going in there at this point. Alright, and that's it for planted aquariums, I suppose.